And I am going to start our recording here. And I see Mayor Tecklenburg has joined us.
We have a
That will give us 10.
That will give us 10. I'm not sure where Mr. Smith went to. I promoted him, but he hasn't popped in here. He will be here shortly.
And I just got a text message from Carl Brady, Councilmember Brady. He's gonna be a few minutes late. He's getting off another city meeting.
All right.
But let's go ahead and are we recording now, Eric?
Yes, sir, we are.
Okay. Well, let's call together to order the West Ashley Revitalization Commission meeting on Bastille Day of 2021. I guess we should bring out our French Republic flags and celebrate Bastille Day for our French brethren. Thank you all for joining us. I appreciate again seeing all of y'all, and hopefully we can stop this foolishness of Zoom meetings and meet in person and see one another in our flesh. But thank you all for joining us. Jonathan, thank you. You said you got my text message.
I did. Thank you. Thanks for having me back.
Well, when I saw you out that site the other day at Maryville, I said, "All right, I'm gonna have to go up and grab him and bring him into the back into the fold." So thanks for joining us. So you should have received a revised version of the minutes. Thanks to Councilmember Moody for getting his red pin out and making some changes on that. He corrected a couple of typos on it. We do appreciate that. All those in favor of approving the minutes from our May 12, 2021 meeting, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you. The minutes are approved.
Yeah, that's correct.
As amended. Right. Okay. So I think this is going to be the Eric show, pretty much. And I asked Eric to give us an update on 3 major projects that are occurring in West Ashley, and that Eric, can you tell? I can't see on my screen. Are any other city council members joining us on here?
At current, I see Councilman Appel is on, and that's it for city council members. All
right. Well, if you could give a rundown as to what the Sumar Street redevelopment project is, if there's anything you want to share to show people the conceptual design of that, if you are ready to do that. Let's go through.
I guess first I'll go ahead and sorry not to cut you off, Chairman. First, here's our agenda for tonight. So the 3 items that the chairman has mentioned are going to be Sumar Street redevelopment, Epic Center, also formerly the Citadel Mall, and 829 St. Andrews Boulevard mixed use. And then after that, it will be me again providing some updates on just some other WARC work group initiatives. Okay. So that is that portion. Do another share. So before I delve too deep into our into what is currently proposed at the location for our Sumar Street initiative and redevelopment, I just wanted to give a overview of what has transpired since we purchased the site, and then kind of getting it up to where we are at now. So this is not a beautiful graphically designed list, but this is just very cold about exactly what date things occurred on. So we purchased the parcel August of 2017 for about 3.029 million, roughly. That's rounded, obviously. And after that, the city did go through a research to see if the structure itself could be reused or not. We found that it could not be, so we placed out for demolition service on site. May of 2018, the structure was demolished, and then immediately in June 29th of 2018, both the city planning office as well as the city design division opened up a survey online and for residents to provide input as to what they want to see occur at this location. And then on July 10th and 11th, we held an in-person workshop for about 12 hours each day, where we sat with the community and drew up the ideas as they talked to us about them. And then August 1st, 2018, we was a WARC meeting, and we actually showed the survey results to you all. And I can pull up that presentation. I can just go ahead and scroll through this really quickly. I don't want to belabor it too much, but back in 2018, the survey results. And so just as a refresher, there were about 927 respondents over the course of 31 days. 733 of them lived in West Ashley, and the top 3 neighborhoods were the ones adjacent to the site. So Sandhurst, Northbridge Terrace, and Northbridge. I'll see if I can't skip some of this and just get down to the core at the end of it. So the top 3 criteria that people said is that it should be safe for walking, biking, driving, and taking transit. The site should also include landscaping, treescape, and it should be improved to allow as many cars as possible to travel through the area as quickly as possible. Those were our top 3 criteria from the public. At the same time, really it just kind of swapped around for what people felt that they wanted, but an area full of energy and vitality was, in the top 4 there if you were to combine all these together. And so when we asked them what use of services, uses, or activities, passive green space, small scale retail, and restaurant were on the top of the list. And we did have 146 other answers that were put in with it. Really right smack in between what people want to see architecturally there, between both modern and traditional. And people believed that traffic being calm but flowing was better for the area. So that's just a very fast overview to show later on that when we were working with it, as part of everything that was occurring out here, the county then initiated in the fall of 2018 a realignment initiative for Sam Rittenberg and Old Town. They held 3 public meetings between the fall of 2018. Couldn't quite remember the exact date of the first meeting that we had. So we continually were shifting to coordinate with the county and to make sure that the program that the citizens wanted of small scale retail, of small scale office and restaurant and civic space would work on this site. And so we did about 3 iterations of those over the course of the fall. Then the county put it up for final decision between the 2 realignment alternatives, and the public essentially said that they did not like either. So the entire realignment was gone back to the drawing board, and now it's back in a new form. It's no longer realigning the roads, but instead looking at how to better calm the area and how to get bicycles and pedestrians safer and traffic calming in the area, which again goes back to what exactly what the public wanted, which was for vehicles to be able to flow through the area, but bicycles and pedestrians to be able to access this site safely and conveniently. June of 2019, we had a ULI TAP panel. So that's a technical assistance panel. They came in and again helped us just to craft what could the site hold in it. July 10th, we showed you some alternatives, and we showed you with the alternatives from the county how we could incorporate the public ideas as well as the general direction of the site. After that, City Planning and Design Division did a presentation to council regarding this site and what could be accommodated on it. We then, in November, sent out a request for qualifications. It was open for about a month and a half. After it closed, we entered into talks with Landmark to make sure that what the city wanted to see in terms of program would fit on the site and would work with them. And then we all know in March, there was a complete shift in how we do business. So that put a delay into it. May of 2020, the Landmark Development Group came back to you all to show their design proposals for how they could accommodate the city project as well as the market conditions. Go through some of their presentation. So this is directly out of the public feedback and out of what the city wanted to see here. And Landmark really, they did an excellent job of breaking down square footages for how they could support the project as well as get the city for what it desired, which was a gathering space along with some office space in it, and then small scale market office and restaurant and retail. So you can see that the rough breakdown of it would be 50% retail and restaurant, or I'm sorry, 50% office, 17% retail or restaurant, 33% civic use. And they did 3 design iterations on site to show how the programmatic elements could be fit in using smaller scale buildings. So 2-story buildings for the most part around the area, along with ground surface parking. And they showed some different options. And at the end of the meeting, what was decided by the commission was that the Sam Rittenberg option on screen now was really the best option to go with, where the commercial activity would be all along Sam Rittenberg. Old Town Road would instead be a softer, more landscape side. And in all iterations, the city retained the front spike there, the front point of the triangle, to have our civic and city office space put into it. After the presentation and the direction from the West Ashley Commission, we entered into discussions about a memorandum of understanding with the development team. And that was so we could move from past just this very broad brush percentages into seeing how much square footage could be applied, what are going to be the costs in the long run, things of that nature. And that is where we are at with that element at this juncture. So that's my update for you all on that one. Is there any questions?
Anybody have any questions for Eric as to, that was a very quick rehash of the timeline and the post. So Justin, I think you had your hand up and you have a question.
No, I mean, it's exciting how it's evolved. I'm curious. Is the MOU just a sort of loose collaboration, or is there a contract and timeline whereby they'll close on this and begin work?
The MOU is tight and loose at the same time, and I'm sorry to sound like I'm saying 2 different things. But it would, as we're going through the draft of the MOU, and the mayor and I are meeting with some folks tomorrow about where we are with them. It would include some specifics as to each entity's responsibilities. It doesn't have specific timelines, but it does have some broad-based goals of when things are supposed to be accomplished. But we did not have in there, you're supposed to have stage 1 done by November 15th. Not that kind of detail that's in there. But it does talk about shared costs, expenses, and the process going through the design review board and other benchmarks along those lines. So
Is the final intent for a third-party developer to transact with the city and pay for the land? Will the city be getting back over $3 million for what it paid for, or is this a a build, basically is fee transferring, or is the city looking for a fee developer partner?
I'll respond if you like, Peter. I
Yes,
think
go ahead, Mayor.
the direction we're going is that, of course, a portion of the property clearly would remain with the city. We're going to have one of our own buildings on it. And so that portion of it, Justin, would be basically on a fee basis. In essence, they're building a building for us on our own land. And then the other portion will be a private investment that they'll be making an investment and have a rental property. It'll go on the improvements, at least will go on the tax rolls and contribute to the tax increment finance district. I guess you can slice it either way. It'll end up being either a long-term lease to them or let them have the option to buy that portion of the property. So I did want to comment, you know, when you look at the whole timeline since we bought the property, it seems like government work, right? It's taken a while, but I say that a bit in jest because legitimately we had to work with the county, Brantley, to make sure we knew what the footprint of our property was going to be. And we all thought for at least a couple of years that there might be, you know, a highway relocation or project that might change the footprint of our property. So that was a big deal. Another big deal was having that community input to see what our community would like to see there. And I think we did a good job of that. And we have a pretty good vision going forward for what should be at the property. But thirdly, four things. Thirdly was COVID, and that kind of put a pause on things over the last year, I must admit. But fourthly, you know, our TIF district is the source of funds that the city's going to use to kind of make our investment in our own building here. And so we needed a little time for that TIF district to mature so that we'll be able to get some cash out of it to be able to build and pay for this building. So in a way, I know some people have been anxious for us to move forward, and I have been too, but there have been some very legitimate reasons as to why this has seemed a little more bureaucratic than normal, and I just thought I would share that with everyone.
Thanks, Mayor. And I don't want to underestimate or underemphasize this, that the city has been working very closely with the county, and you saw the timelines on there about getting this redevelopment of this entire area worked out. And I appreciate the efforts from Councilwoman Moody, because we've been working hand in hand with this, but we could not even start the process of having an understanding what we're going to do with this property without knowing the footprint in the event that some of the land was going to be used for right-of-ways or other type of road improvement. So that was critical part of that. And I think we moved with as much speed as we could. We had some stops and goes with that, but that was very important to have that resolved. And so we got it resolved, and we've got a plan worked out, and the county and the city are working together on getting those road improvements in line.
And if the developer was ready to go on their allocated portion, does the city have earmarked funds for the center? Are those funded and spoken for, or are those, you know, to be you know, lobbied for and figured out?
Well, as I said, the main source will be from our tax increment finance district. So timing is a factor, and that's one reason why in our negotiation we'll have the developer actually build it for us and then buy it back from him at the end of the construction period, which will give us yet a little more time for the TIF district to be able to be bondable and you know, produce some income to pull this off. Brantley, how we doing on the project now that, of course, it's mostly, you know, pedestrian improvements, sidewalk improvements, some turn lanes and all that. Where do we stand on that project?
I believe Jim Armstrong and Richard Turner told me, I believe it's going out. Eric, help me out. We just sent this out. It's going for design and maybe even some bidding later this year, I believe. So, you know, Glenn McConnell went for bidding and construction in 2017. So things can take a little while, but it is, I think to your point, Mayor, we've all agreed on the corners that are going to be touched and what those are going to look like. But getting all the permits, getting the funded, that's going to probably take a cycle or two through county funding to get it all done. But I do believe contract bids and things like that are supposed to go out in the fall. Eric, did I get that right?
Yes, sir. Yeah. Contract bids are for fall of 21.
Great, terrific.
And then
Thank
I do see Mr. Zucker had his hand raised.
Yeah. Hey, Jonathan.
Thank you. Yeah, again, great to be back with you all, and Mr. Chairman, Mr. Mayor, thank you. I may have missed this, and I apologize, even if it may have just been shown in the drawing before, but at one point we were talking about there being some gateway or signage or welcome to Charleston, welcome to West Ashley. Is that a part of this plan, or is that part of some other plan to be closer to the Cosgrove Bridge or the North Bridge? Or, you know, is that still on the table?
Yes. So I don't know if you picked up on this, Jonathan, but I had to look for it myself again as Eric was going through the process. There's a structure conceptually planned at the very tip of it that looks like a bell tower of some sort. And that would be sort of our, lack of a better way of saying it, our flag. This is, yeah. And that would include the signage, and Eric, you can pull it back up. Yeah, it's right there.
Okay,
So,
yeah, I'm sorry, I missed that before. Yeah.
Yeah, I was looking for it and I couldn't find it at first. So when this image came up, I knew that was so. And if you'll have an ability, the way that it's designed, to walk up to it, and you'll be able to see the rivers, the Ashley River from that vantage point. It'll be high enough to do that.
Great, thank you.
So the intent is for the architecture and the tower to be iconic, so to speak, and you know, a real kind of welcoming feature of the property. And in and of itself, the architecture and the tower should, you know, achieve that effect.
Okay.
You've arrived in a special place. It's West Ashley.
Great.
The birthplace of Charleston, the birthplace of South Carolina.
And I think Councilman Moody, you might know this, you might not. I think there was some signage element to the overall bike pedestrian traffic calming as an effort to prompt people before they reach the scissor intersection for Samrit and Old Penn. And there may be opportunity with that to, again, also put some additional language on this.
I have not seen that yet, Eric, but that could be the case.
There's a question that popped up. I'm gonna go ahead and take care of that question from one of our participants. What kind of services will be at the Civic Center? What we would like to have at that location are some city offices. Perhaps we could stick Eric Pullman, the West Ashley project manager there, plus some other city offices there. Also, meeting spaces would be included in there, a place for neighborhood associations and other groups to meet from time to time. And also a place that perhaps we could draw city council there to meet when we take the city council meetings on the road. So a civic space for meetings. And even if we could, while we're meeting downtown at 80 Broad Street, it would also be a place that citizens could assemble to join in on a virtual participation as well. So It is one of the, we don't have many city government spaces located in West Ashley. When you take out parks and police forensic stations and fire stations, the number of other kind of city government offices, this would be something that would be of service to our community for citizens to use out there. So it's pretty broad right now, Mr. Kaufman. Thanks for your question, and I'm glad to answer that for you. Let's move on, Eric, if we could, to the Epic Center.
All right.
Unless anybody
so
has
this
any
is-
other questions. Okay.
Okay.
Yes,
All
sir.
right. So for the Epic Center on the City Council agenda for July 20th, you will see a request for extension from the owners of Epic Center Citadel Mall. Last year, just about this time, they came to City Council and had a memorandum of understanding drafted and approved by City Council to research further the costs for shared drainage, the cost for some additional affordable housing units, things of that nature on their site. And the drainage portion has really just, it is very complicated. They have been working through, and this is just a reminder here when I talk about drainage, is that this is from the DuPont Wapu stormwater study that was done. And what the Epic Center is doing, what the ownership is doing, is they have 3 of the top 10 major drainage projects located either on site or directly adjacent to their site. And so they have been working with AECOM, who is the representative for Charleston County, and the city stormwater department to try and figure out how can they best tie in with the stormwater improvements in this drainage document, and really leverage and make it to where some of the proposed elements in this document can be turned into valuable and very valued and useful spaces for the future occupants and residents of this area. So basically, because there's a connection point here that runs along, the future of this area, and they want to make sure that it is designed to the best of its ability and to really capture the most value that they can get out of it, and making it a useful location, making it an active location. And it's just taking a little bit longer than was anticipated to work through a lot of that coordination with both city, county, and that. So that's the update on Epic Center directly. I can also show just real briefly. Where'd my share screen go? There it is. Just in general, I also want to show this, that the Citadel Mall property, so the city has access to a software platform called Placer that allows us to see foot traffic in locations. It's aggregated cell phone data. So it's not like we track individuals with it. It's a company gathers all the cell phones in general in an area and just kind of puts out these quick documents for us. And this is just showing that from 2019 to today, or well, June 21st in 2021, Citadel Mall has, they were doing progressively better. Coronavirus unfortunately hit us, and that they are back on that same trajectory. So they have been, and they are actually 28% above where they started in 2019 in terms of foot traffic and visits at the mall area. So they are on a very good, solid path. They have, MUSC is fully open again for its ambulatory care. Gemstones has picked up production again at the former Sears location. And they have started to do some very innovative community events, one of which I am actually going to poke at Ms. Tidestrom to talk about real briefly, and that was the West Ashley Connects, I forget the full name of it, West Ashley Connects Makers Market. Teresa, you're muted right now.
It's not Connects, it's the West Ashley Artisans and Crafters Fair. So we did it this weekend. We had 17 vendors. Very amazing. These are artists that were drawing on site, making jewelry on site, woodworking, very upscale, very focused, produced amazing material. And the next one is going to be on August the 14th. And I think we're up to about 24 vendors. And it's right at Center Court when you walk outside of MUSC, right there. And speaking about the foot traffic, it was up. There was a lot more. It was nice to see people strolling in the mall, you know, your walkers in the morning. And it's nice to see that come back alive. But the vendors are absolutely amazing.
I see that Councilmember Moody, you have your hand up.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I wanted to correct something about the intersection. I'll tell you why I made the mistake. The intersection improvements are not due to be bid out until fiscal year 23 for the Orange Grove for that area. The reason 21 was so stuck in my head is we've got so many projects: Stocker, Chadwick, sidewalks on Savage Road, Adelaide Street across from Trudy's store, Glenn McConnell, Sycamore and 61, Ashley Hall Plantation, turn lanes. All of those are scheduled to start later this year. So 21 was kind of stuck in my head, but I wanted to make sure I cleared the record up on that intersection. It's not for a few years until it's be ready to built out. It's at about the 30% completion right now.
I appreciate that correction. Thank you, sir. Important to know. Teresa?
From has her hand raised.
Yeah, Teresa.
Yeah, I wanted to add that the event that we had this weekend, I don't have the total yet, but the proceeds are all going towards halos that we work with each year. The event coming up in August, that will be food driven. We're asking for food to stock every blessing box in West Ashley. So this is a personal thing for me. We're gonna stock it. We're gonna ask people to bring, you know, canned goods. We've got lockers set up right outside the MUSC entrance and see how it goes.
Okay. Any other questions about the Epic Center, what's going on with them? You know, this is a completely different setup. This is all private owned, and the city's working with them to help foster all that. But as Eric mentioned earlier, the stormwater component is a critical part of their attempts to redevelop. All right, Eric, can you move on to the old Ryan site, St. Andrews Boulevard, 829?
Can do. All right. So for the 829 St. Andrews update, so this is the presentation that was given at the June 7th, 21 Design Review Board meeting. And they were given a conceptual approval with some additional criteria along with it. So this has been given conceptual, and what they have to do from this point forward is they need to submit for our technical review committee. And that's where things such as traffic and transportation, stormwater, Americans with Disabilities Access, and other technical review elements such as that get reviewed. So it will be back to the Design Review Board for public comment for its preliminary design, but I would not expect that until they have at least one or two more technical review committee meetings, just so that way when it comes back for preliminary, they're further along down the design process and start showing more detail-oriented design solutions. That is the quickest update on that one.
So
Does anyone have any questions?
yeah, so folks who are listening in and who have not been part of this process, we've been paying close attention to the applicant's plans for this redevelopment of the Ryan Steakhouse. There's going to be a rededication of a road called Chase Street that's going to run parallel to Sycamore Street that will service this area. It's going to be a mixed use with residential, restaurant, retail. I think one of the neat things about it will be the rooftop restaurant on there. But it's going to come right up to where the West Asheville Farmers Market, the city is working on redesigning that as a more permanent location, closer to where the dog park is and the skateboard park is. So this is part of an overall scheme to redo this whole area. Again, this is private property. The city has control of the Ackerman Park and the farmers market area. So we're getting there, and I wanted to emphasize this because this is one of the main projects in our wheelhouse, and we've been very stingy on making sure that they are following our West Ashley plan, West Ashley. So that's what's going on with that property, and we're looking forward to seeing how this dirt's going to be kicked up and project moving on. Any questions about 829 St. Andrews Boulevard? I know a lot of us who are on this revitalization commission have seen these plans already and been very much involved in it. But thank you all for y'all's input on those plans and your diligence on it. All right.
All right. So, can move
All right,
along to the next elements, which are going to be updated on the West Ashley work groups. So these are small initiatives led by you all or heavily participated in by you all to try and flesh out some of the more vaguer details from Plan West Ashley. I wish I had a document further along than this, but we have we've reached a point with the West Ashley development. What's the wording I use for West Ashley design principles? So as part of Plan West Ashley, there's an implementation item that just says develop a set of urban design principles for key sites and corridors based on the illustrative versions, and it lists out everything that should be looked at, such as lighting, sidewalks, etc. Because that's a little bit on the broader side, what the work group did was really look at, I apologize for the roughness of this diagram, but what we did was just look at West Ashley as a whole. And what we decided was that there are 4 different areas that need to be looked at very differently when it comes to the design review. So you have these dark black circles here. Those would represent gateway entry points into the West Ashley area that would have a high intensity for design. So that's where we would feel that larger structures with more active ground floors and more active up at the street edge would occur. The blue circles would be neighborhood centric. So that's where you would start to see a lot more softer tones when it comes into height, scale, mass, along with a lot more emphasis placed onto outdoor spaces, more emphasis placed on how to better connect with the neighborhoods that are directly adjacent or behind them. And then you have the corridors in between them on the inside part of I-526. And then you have corridors on the outside of 526. And what we worked through with that is that the corridors inside and the corridors outside are very different in terms of the context around them. So the design review board should take that in consideration. Inside 526, a lot of what our design principles focus on is activating the ground floor. And even if the structure is presenting itself to the street. It does not necessarily mean that it is up at the back of the sidewalk. It's trying to make sure that there's enough room for activation in front of these structures, to have patios, to have landscaping. We've tried to tie a lot of our suggestions for these design principles back to the ratio of street to height for the buildings, along with context on the left and right rear portions. So once I actually finish the written document, I will be bringing that to our design review board, along with the city architect and the administrator for the design review board, to make sure that it's a document that they feel like they can support and endorse. And then it would bring you all back into it and talk about it further with that. So we're at, we finished step one of at least getting the commission members' raw ideas out onto paper. Now I have to polish them and get them. Any of the commission members want to talk about this that helped me get to this stage?
No questions, comments? Ashley? I saw some movement.
Ashley was very instrumental in helping us get to where we're at. So.
Thank you, Ashley.
Yeah, you're welcome. That was just a thumbs up. Thanks for the report, Eric.
Okay. Well, we went through that pretty quickly, much faster than I was anticipating. Thank you all for listening in. Any other comments, questions before I open this back up to the public comment period? Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to give everyone a brief update that last night at our council recreation committee meeting, we had a presentation that council will consider this coming Tuesday of a master park and recreation plan for our city that includes major components, of course, in West Ashley. And I think I'm very excited about it. It really sets a vision for the next 10 years to improve and add to our park system and our recreation programs throughout the city. And some specific improvements that are recommended for West Ashley include a remake of Forest Park. I think y'all may know the W.L. Stevens pool is reopened a little differently due to ventilation and some other challenges with opening the panels and the ceiling. So we took the side panels away. It's reopened, but the bottom line is the pool is very, very tired and needs to be replaced. So that's one of the recommendations of the plan, is that we get a new pool at Forest Park, that we have a remake of Ackerman Park. I know we've been working on that already, that we have a total remake of Park Shore Park, close to where Councilmember Shade and Jonathan lives, that we have an inner West Ashley Recreation Center. So that's one of the recommendations. Then looking outer West Ashley, we have some property, Bear Swamp Road, that was part of the Long Savannah tract. We have about 200 acres there, so to develop that. And we recently got the right to purchase 15 acres of park property in what will be the newer part of Village Green subdivision. And then finally, improvements to Charleston Tennis Center. So all of these West Ashley parks have specific recommendations. They're part of the plan. I'm just looking at a little list I got here. It's only about $60 million worth of stuff for West Ashley alone, which is a little over half of the total recommendation. But council will be considering that next week as far as the plan, and then we'll come back not too distant future with some recommendations to begin funding phase one of these park improvements. I think next to keeping people safe, that parks and our recreation is like a main factor in improving and keeping up our quality of life for our city. So I'm very excited about it. And I asked Eric if maybe he'll send a link out to everybody on the commission to at least the summary, the executive summary of this park master plan. I think you'd be very pleased and supportive of the plan. And anyway, I just thought it would apropos timely to share that with everyone.
Mr. Mayor, thank you for doing that. And as you may recall, early on your administration, I did meet with you about Park Shore Park. And so I'm glad to know that that has made the cut on there. I know Councilmember Moody would be glad to hear that as well, because that has so much potential in that area. And we're glad that's on your list. And part of the Plan West Ashley specifically address the improvement and increase of the number of recreation facilities in West Ashley for a number of reasons. Is to improve the quality of life, but also it would cut back on the amount of traffic travel time. And as you mentioned, Mayor, about Long Savannah, the acres over there that we're going to get eventually is going to add a bunch of opportunities for folks on that part of outer West Ashley. And it's going to include something similar to what we have downtown as a Colonial Lake type amenity as well. So it's there's a lot happening that's going to impact West Ashley. And maybe, Eric, we could include that, a more detailed discussion of this at one of our upcoming meetings, not necessarily the next one, but at some point. I think it's a good point the mayor has brought up to give us more in-depth information of what's on that wish list. So.
Right.
Thanks for bringing that up, Mayor.
And that's not to mention the things that are in the pipeline already, like Richardson Car Park over in Ashleyville and the WPAL site and improvements to the Greenway and the Bikeway. So those are all a part of it too, but some of them that are already funded, didn't show up on the list.
Okay.
We do have a question from Miss Sherry Glab. She wanted to know where they can find out more information about the Parks and Rec master plan, the planned makeovers. And the master plan is posted on our agenda center. So charleston-sc.gov/agenda center underneath the Recreation Committee. It was on July 13, 2021.
And Eric, there are two other questions I saw pop up about one was addressed to Teresa. Can you answer that or send that to Teresa for her to respond to?
I responded to them.
Okay, thank you.
I'm gonna just for since it's public, I'm gonna go ahead and read out the answer. Ms. Tydstrom responded with, "We will be posting in West Ashley Connects, and Citadel Mall will also be pushing out information. She will be updating for a story with Lauren Chambers in West of. Also, she offered to add Michael Tui to a email list if you so wish. And then we also had I guess, are we good to enter the public comment period, or Ms. Tydstrom, did you give your hand raised?
Yeah, I do have a question. Is the Epic Center included in the recreation plan at all, or is that separate within the
And
budget?
I think she's what she's referring to is there is a sport complex within their planned unit development, as well as their development intentions. Mayor, do you know if that made the master plan list? And I can always dig into that further afterwards if it's putting you too much on the spot. I know you just got the plan yesterday, basically.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I was reading something else, Eric. I apologize. Your question was?
The Epic Center sports facility, is it incorporated into the Parks and Rec master plan?
I think it would be more green space.
It is not, as far as I know. That would be a private development, so to speak, on it could still come forward as part of Epic Center's proposal going forward, but it's not part of our master plan.
Okay. Any other comments, questions before we open this up to the public comment period?
All right,
Okay.
so I am, we have one question that has not been addressed yet from Ms. Jacobs, and she was wondering if the increased traffic at at the Citadel Mall was due to the presence of NUSC, and this question is actually easy enough for me to answer with just sharing a JPEG, so if you'll indulge me for a moment. The short answer is yes. Right there is the week that NUSC opened up their ambulatory care center at Epic Center. And that was their peak of foot traffic at the location. So yes, that is a major component of their revitalization and their increased foot traffic. We have two other questions that were submitted. Actually, no, we did not. That was Ms. Sherry Glab asking again about the planned park makers and then thanking us for our answers. So the Q&A that was on the Zoom meeting is over. I do have 4 public comments that were submitted through our Innovate Charleston portal. And after that, I have no participants signed up to speak, and I received no emails. So I'll go ahead and read these into the record, and we can move on. So Miss Denise Croninger, that's how you pronounce that last name, at 11 Bainbridge Drive. She says, what is the status of the redesign for the intersection of Donahue/Charlestown Drive at Old Town Road? There have been several near misses recently with traffic running the red lights while traveling on Old Town Road. Thank you. Which that, as information, the Donahue-Charlestown Old Town Road is part of the Old Town District Transportation Improvements, which is what Councilman maybe.
We have to come up with an acronym for that, Eric. I think it's a little bit shorter than.
Well, it was
I'll let Councilman Moody figure out a better.
Well, it was something tied. It was something very closely tied to another project, so it's kind of confusing. But the short answer is that road people. We can't do anything about people running lights. I mean, that's law enforcement. But that intersection will be more closely aligned, realigned, so that it's not so quirky. A little bit of the back half of that shopping center will be grabbed so that those intersections line up more evenly. The only other thing is wait a second or two before you go out on the light. It's a bad intersection.
We have a comment that was submitted by C. Norman from Ainsdale Park. What I'm assuming Mr. Norman says is, in addition to creating new projects, improve what we already have. West Trashley did not become an embarrassment overnight. Trashy looking wherever one turns. Does St. Andrews Boulevard look anything like Highway 17 in Mount Pleasant? And Sam Rittenberg, awful. Ashley River Road is a disaster. Please take the time to visit the abandoned former Piggly Wiggly shopping center at the intersection of Ashley River Road and Parsonage Road. Not only are there wild shrubs, high weeds, and disheveled trees along the road, but there are unkempt islands in the barren parking lot. Even when the center was operational, it was a disgrace. The city has been neglectful for decades. Look now look across the street at Circle K. Note the 2 dumpsters facing the street due to the missing gates. Not classy. Properties with 5-foot weeds, bike paths with overgrown plants, and trees overhead that smack bicyclers in the face, rundown businesses and their rusted signage, and some of these properties are city-owned. Cut the grass. Around and near fire stations, police officers, intersections. Disgraceful. Someone authorized and mismanaged the addition of sidewalks along Ashley River Road. The concrete was not raised but installed at ground level or below. So when the first rain came along, the sidewalks were covered in mud. They continued to be covered in dirt, weeds, wild shrubs. Very poor project management, very poor follow-up. Apparently, the planning person and oversight supervisor are incompetent. Same poor management of the West Ashley bike path. It was torn up to install water lines, but adjacent areas were not regraded properly and are now covered in standing water, which is wet to walk through and have become mosquitoes and snake ponds. Signs were not reinstalled, no motorized vehicles. And the crosswalk at Highway 61, Burnish Woods, leads pedestrians to within 3 feet of 61. Nor was the handicap rail yellow footpad replaced. The bike path in front of Magnolia Cemetery is 50% covered by large azalea. At the entrance to the cemetery, the bike path is underwater days after it rains, 30 feet in all adjacent areas because poor grading. Other areas along bike paths are just as poor. Would you like to see photos? Do not be lazy, open your eyes. William Chenoweth of 2021 Springfield Drive. I agree, West Trashley, please look at this image for a lasting iconic Charleston scene that tourists view on their way to historic gardens. And then provide a link that sent you to the Hardee's that is on Highway 61 near Parsonage Road. And then Ms. Sherry Glab at 2 Paddington Circle. I am extremely disheartened that the Sumar Street plans do not appear to be incorporating any sort of change that would improve the suicide merge. I live close to this intersection and several of my neighbors / their family members have had accidents at this terribly designed intersection. I have had several near misses there myself. Calling it an alternate merge is laughable. The drivers merging from the Sam Rittenberg side cannot see merging cars onto the Old Town side until the last moment. At the very least, the left lane on Old Town side could be changed to a yield to merging traffic or simply blocked using yellow paint approaching the merge. Please do not approve any redevelopment in this area without first addressing the most dangerous issue there. And that will conclude our public comment period.
So I'm just going to respond to the very last issue that was brought up. And as you heard, folks, that from Councilmember Moody, the work that we've been doing on improving this whole component from Orange Grove Road and Sam Rittenberg all the way down to Donahue, Charlestown Estates, Dickens Street, Amberley. This is an entire study done on improving this whole Old Town district for traffic improvement. And several plans were floated and presented to the public as to major changes with this intersection. The public had a huge impact on killing some of these projects. We went through 2 prior designs that were not approved by the public. So this third design is what Councilman Moody had just alluded to earlier. And we will see improvements at Orange Grove Road and Sam Rittenberg. We will see improvements at Donahue and Old Town Road, Sam Rittenberg and Amberley, Sam Rittenberg and Dickens, Sam Rittenberg and Charlestown, I think that's Charlestown Estates Road. There's going to be a huge improvement with all of this to include connectivity. I forgot about Sumar Street. There's going to be connectivity there, plus a pedestrian bike path coming off of Orange Grove Road, behind which the former Barlow shopping center area. So these are areas that we'll have spent a great deal of time the past, 3 or 4 years, I think, that the city and county have been working together on to address those concerns. I just wanted, that was the last thing that you read, Eric, and I just wanted, that was on my mind fresh. If anybody else has any comments about some of the other public comment concerns or questions, there was just, you went through them very thoroughly, but I just wanted to reemphasize our commitment to what we're doing in this Old Town district area with traffic concerns.
Yeah,
did you want to add on to that?
Peter, Mr. Chairman, I might note the 2 iterations we looked at on the Sandhurst and the Northbridge side. I mean, it was not a 51-49 against. It was, I think, 85+ against on the Sandhurst side and 90-something% on the Northbridge side. So You know, it's 50-50 or something. You could flip a coin and maybe try to go one way or the other, but that's a pretty big smackdown to the plans that were drawn up. So that left us with no options other than just to work on the intersection improvements there. And those seem to be well received. Thank you.
Good point. Teresa?
So Keep West Ashley beautiful. Obviously, I'm kind of waiting for you guys to finish up or whatever you're going to do with Orange Grove. As for 61, we've been working with SCDOT, and the gentleman was correct that the sidewalks just fill in. So they want to go out and try to grade it down. That way, when they come through, we can get it manicured a little bit better. We're going to take away a lot of that grass, but we also have property owners that we're dealing with because unfortunately or fortunately, it's going to take all of us stepping up to make this right. And everybody keeps comparing to Mount Pleasant. Well, you go up, 17, it's absolutely beautiful. Yeah, we can have it here, but it's going to take every one of us working together to get this done. And I am working with 2 different nurseries that are willing to plant, native plants, but we've got to get the area in shape for it to happen. So that's the update on 61. And this goes down 61 past Dogwood all the way to Parsonage.
Thank you, Teresa. Anybody else? Justin, I see your hand up.
Yeah, so, I mean, I think, obviously the goal of the Revitalization Commission, revitalization means bring back life, and part of that's clean up. And Teresa's and carrying a heavy load and pointing out that everyone can do a little bit more, but the TIF is intended to help subsidize capital expenses and capital investment. Is there any element of the TIF that can assist with short-term, beautification or operating expenses that tackle these types of things? And absent that being the funding mechanism, it sounds like folks have, want to raise their voices on, some cleanup goals. I don't know who the right audience is, but is there a department or an organization that we could facilitate a dialogue with, so that the answer is simply not sit back and wait till the private sector develops a pretty thing right there and sweeps it for you? There's an intermediate step. I mean, I love the city of Charleston, but if y'all can give me $1,000 livability fine for not cutting my grass downtown, it goes both ways. So I'm curious who's the right department that's in charge of that we can offer a forum to these folks to raise their voices.
Well, Justin, I think you raised a very good point about all that. Most of these roads are state-run roads, and so do we have a particular department or fund available? No, the answer to that question is no. As the mayor mentioned, we are generating some TIF funds to address these areas, and certainly our focus is on San Wittenberg Boulevard as a huge goal to improve all of that area. And that's very much within the Plan West Ashley. It deals with specific ideas on improving the streetscape of that, the sidewalks, make it much more accessible all the way around. Unfortunately, as you heard, I mean, we've been working on just this one particular area of Highway 7 and 171 between Orange Grove Road and Dickens, Charlestown Estates, Donahue. And as Councilmember Moody just said, that's not going to get up and running until 2023. That's a year and a half from now. So it is something we've got to be focusing on. And if we have alternate funds, alternate sources of funds, I'm all ears for that. But there is not a specific department that addresses that right now. So we're going through it by piecemeal approach. I mean, there are other projects that I certainly want to see work on, which is all of the area of Old Town Road from the beginning part of the split at 7 and 61 that needs our attention. And the mayor brought up to our attention all of San Brittenberg at a recent meeting that we need to be concerned about. Mayor, let me go to Mary Peters first, and then I'll come back to you. Yes, Mary.
I just wanted to ask Justin, are you talking about like a coalition of business owners who would get behind organizations that would help with these projects?
I wasn't necessarily, I wasn't implying anything specifically. I was just, saying 2 out of the 3 comments were in the vein of how do we clean up main thoroughfares better. And I don't fault the public for not taking the time to necessarily know between, what's on the right of way that the city should clean up, what's the DOTs and what's the private owners. What they see is it needs to be better. And I don't know where you pro rata allocate who needs to do better, but how do we bring the most coordinated networked leaders, whether that's private business consortiums, whether that's a department within the city, along with a nonprofit that's going out there and doing the sweeps, and put them all together so that they can collectively hear from the public those comments, and how do we then provide the right amount of backing, whether it's resources or trying to help get folks to come out to support it. Because I think we're facilitating a lot of dialogues, but those are
I agree with you. I was just wondering if that's what you had in mind, those kinds of coalitions.
No, I mean, it's this. Look, we talk about the suicide merge. No matter how many people we come out and say what we want to say, like, we can't take shovels and dig asphalt and change the roads. But we can't override DOT and the county and democratically, as Brantley said, it was an overwhelming majority vote. But I think people can bring their voices and their brooms and the rakes, and that doesn't cost money, and it can give prioritization.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Chairman, I need to sign off in a minute, but I just want to bring to everyone's attention, this is true throughout the city, that a property owner is technically legally responsible for the maintenance in front of his property, including the sidewalk out to the curb. And I, for one, note sometimes and call my livability department to report code enforcement officers to go out and inspect the property and write a ticket as appropriate. Not only happens downtown, like Justin mentioned, but West Ashley as well. So I invite you all, if you see a property that needs attention, you can call our customer service line at 724-7311, give them the name of the property, and ask them if they would send a code enforcement or livability officer out there. And it can even be for overgrown weeds. Got something to report in your neighborhood, please call it in and we'll be happy to take a look. Now, some of the properties are in the county and not in the city, but Councilmember Moody, I believe y'all have a similar code enforcement team that will go out and look at any property. And you're right, Justin, there is incremental steps. Yeah, I'd like one day for us to do a complete remake of Sam Rittenberg Boulevard, a complete streetscape renovation. But in the meantime, that's a long-term goal. We need to do everything we can collectively to, clean things up. Thanks.
Yeah, Teresa, then I'll come back to Councilmember Waring.
I'll make this short, and that's exactly what I'm dealing with right now. You know, contacting the business owners and educating them on exactly what their responsibility is. That is the major issue going down 61, where the sidewalks are disappearing because it's coming from their property. And many of them, especially the ones that are for sale, they don't want to go out there. And we've got ordinary citizens going out with lawnmowers, you know, trying to clear a really good path. You know, there's a great sidewalk, but you cannot get down it because it's just totally overgrown. And a lot of these business owners don't know. There are some that don't care, but we're working on it. So it's a very long, tedious process, but they've got to know. And if they need to be reported, that may be the way that we have to go. And SCDOT is saying the same thing, you know, and until they step up, they can't step in.
If we got a particular stretch of sidewalk that we need to quote reclaim across multiple property owners, you can talk to me or Eric, and we can do a special thing with our streets and our sidewalks team. I did this on Upper Meeting Street, way Upper Meeting Street, not too long ago, where just sand and grass had accumulated over the years, and the property owners had never done what they were supposed to do. So we went back, I call it reclamation of the sidewalk. Sometimes it takes that. If you got a special stretch, let Eric know, and we'll try to do that.
Got it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good. Councilmember Waring, thanks for joining us.
Thanks. I think it takes the coordination between the county and the city, and that's not happening the way we should do it. There's certain things that we can control. When you come across the North Bridge, back into West Ashley, and you come in by Sandhurst, and you've got that portion on what I call the west side of Sandhurst. It's a natural growth buffer right along there. If the county and the city just got together, even with neighbors, coordinated cleaning up that area, ride by there today, look at the limbs that have broken down and decaying right there on the ground right there. If you look to the east side, it looks great over there. You got crepe myrtle trees, everything on the frontage portion of the frontage road over there. When you look to the west side, it looks unkept. We control that. In other words, we, meaning government, controls that area. So now we've talked about this before. We've talked about this 2 years ago. It hadn't been done. We can do that. That's just maintenance. And if we clean that area up, you got mature trees there, we limit up, clean out the debris, and just plant some flowering plants, some bedding plants in there, it would look magnificent. When you come around past the Suicide Murder, entering West Ashland, you pass the old Rhodes furniture store building. I guess, what is it now? I forget the furniture place that's there now. It starts with a G. Anyway, the frontage road between Sam Rittenberg and across from Charleston.
I think it's Champion Way you're talking about.
Champion Way on the right-hand side. We control that. The county and the city controls those pine trees and the palm trees that's in there now. It just needs to be limbed up, cleaned out, bedding plants put in, and all of a sudden the gateway is the gateway that we control is beautified. I notice where it's not a quite clover leaf, but it's a 3 clover leaf, if you will, where 526 and Glen McConnell. The state, I think it's the state, Brantley, you may correct me, could have been the county, but the state has gone in there and done a wonderful job at mulching, if you will, the wild growth that has taken place there. You know, yesterday I just happened to go through International Boulevard on 526, and on that clover leaf, North Charleston, the state, whomever, done a wonderful job just putting flowering plants and crepe myrtles in there. The hard part has been done. The hard part of taking out the weeds, the bushes, and the little trees that were grown, somebody did a good job. I'm gonna give the credit to the state, probably 2 months ago, coming through there with heavy equipment and mulching it. All we have to do now is get permission to go in there and put back. Look at what's been done at the other areas. Go right back in and put in crepe myrtles and again, annual plants that heavy mulch in there. And all of a sudden you got a landscape gateway coming off of 526 on the Sam Rittenberg. You got a landscape gateway coming in from Northbridge into West Ashley on the west side over there. Again, we control between the county and the city. When you come into West Ashley from across the West Ashley Bridge that you got pictured behind you, Peter, you can continue on Savannah Highway or you bear right. There's a landscaping area right in the middle there right now. Bill Moody, myself, when you go under, continue on Savannah Highway before you get to Hay Tire Company, there's some landscaping right now underneath the flyover over Highway 17. It got there because the city of Charleston appropriated money to put the landscape in there. When you come to Old Town Road and St. Andrews Boulevard, right in those little islands there, they're landscaped now. When myself and Aubrey Alexander got the money from the city to plant those landscapings that's there right now. You talk about the suicide merge right there. If you leave in West Ashley and the pig is on your right-hand side and the landscape is in the middle in between there and the what used to be the Blue Cross and Blue Shield building, that landscaping island in there, Paul Tinkler forewent his salary from city council and had his salary pay for those landscaping that we all enjoy today. So to say that we can't do that, we can do that, Peter. If you, myself, and 5 other people can get that money appropriated in the upcoming budget to improve some of these areas. The Burger King on the corner of Sam Rittenberg and 61. This committee, through complaints, through this very committee, got the grass cut. The problem is it's a repeat offender. And if you go by there right now, the weeds are 2 feet high. I'm 1 block from it. They're 2 feet high. So if we don't complain about it, when we get repeat offenders, then our livability area needs to haul them in the court. So some of this low-hanging fruit, our committee isn't powerful enough to get it done. We have to up our game. Those are some of the things I was talking about at the last meeting, Peter. We, and I'm not saying y'all, we have to do a better job. So areas that the county controls and areas that the city controls, if we don't collaborate, West Ashley will continue to look trashy. So I guess the challenge would be, can we make the island between, the landscape buffer between Sandhurst and Sam Rittenberg look better than it looks today? Think about it. We don't have to go in and plant with a big spade truck mature trees. Those trees are already there. All we got to do is prune them and clean up in the area. The cheapest thing to put in is bedding plants. So as you go down Sam Rittenberg, we can do a lot better. I guess we have to coordinate with the state to get some landscaping put in that were not put in when the clover leaves were put in at Sam Rittenberg Gateway and Glen McConnell. And obviously where it comes down at on Glen McConnell empties out on Sam Rittenberg, closer to Savannah Highway, we can get bedding plants and stuff to go there too, flowering plants to go there. So that's probably 3 or 4 gateways that this committee, let's put it like this, if it was down in historic Charleston district, it wouldn't look like that. And we know that. So we just have to up our game, that's all. So, but Peter, you and I are gonna be on that budget ad hoc committee.
Right.
We got to get monies to come for that beautification in there. Because the TIF district right now isn't generating enough money because it's not any development taking place in the footprint of the TIF district. The majority of development that's taking place in the TIF district, believe it or not, is in the county, not in the city. So.
Thank you, Councilmember Waring. And by the way, I've noticed that your grandchildren have posted new signs behind your head on your door. So
I'll tell you that. Those are
I've noticed a change.
future artists behind it, man. Hey, listen, one of them is, and Jonathan, you may know this, one of them, the top one is Optimus Prime, by the way.
Yeah.
Optimus Prime doesn't fool around. We all have to turn into Optimus Prime.
But I appreciate the discussion on this, and this is very helpful to do that. And probably what we should do, Eric, is what Councilman Moran just went through this redemption of these certain particular areas and intersections. And it starts on both sides from coming from downtown into West Ashley off of the World War I bridge. 61 begins with 17 and Folly Road. I mean, we've got several major intersections, I think, that we can identify. I pass by every day, Councilman wearing the point of 61 and 7 split, that area that you were talking about, and it does make a difference. You sit there at a stoplight and you see the crews out there, they're cleaning it up, they spruce it up, and it does make a difference when you are sitting at that stoplight and you look at that. That's something much more attractive than a bunch of weeds. We've got these areas that we can be addressing, and you're right, it is a collaborative effort on that part. Justin, you got your hand up and been very patient. You wanted to chime in on something else?
No, I was just gonna say, I mean, it seems like we've hit a theme that might deserve a subsequent meeting allocation of time. And I think a lot of the things we talk about are how can we design stuff that someone else might spend money on, and how will it be pretty, or how do we, hope state agencies will fund money on something, and that's opining on something that's unfunded and to be in the future. We can bend over and pick up trash today. I think we might want to spend some time talking about it, try to give voice to that, and maybe Teresa could think on, is there something we could do as a commission? I mean, if this is a priority for folks, I know we have good ideas, and it's always a pleasure to hear folks talk, but would it be meaningful for us to cancel one call and us to go out to the prioritized area Teresa picks, and we just pick up trash? I know there's the metaphor getting into the trenches. I will, Brantley might click back on and be visible when I say this. One of the most meaningful things that I've ever seen politically was Brantley's dad, Councilman Moody, was the tie-breaking vote for the plastic bag ordinance, and he chose to defer and abstain in the first reading because he said he wanted to learn more. And he went out to Citadel Mall and legitimately crawled down into the ditches and the trenches and looked and picked up bags and came back and voted in favor of it. It changed his mind. He went in the trench. So would love for us to all go in the trench.
Yep.
So just so everybody knows, Keep West Ashley Beautiful is working with Keep Charleston Beautiful, Come Out of Pride. We're working with all the organizations. We've actually identified 15 areas in West Ashley, working with SCDOT. We've got a lot of work accomplished. As Brantley knows, he's been on one of the trash pickups that we've done. It's not just about trash. It's moving forward and doing streetscaping, getting, business owners involved so that they get out there as well and do their part. This is going to be a huge effort. It's going to take time, and it does come back to, okay, the city, the county, help. Let's put our minds together and see what we can get done.
And it also, Teresa, as your point, is also the enforcement of getting these signage down, like these banana signs are up there that are legal, and people parking their trucks to show as a billboard of some sort. There's a whole component of all of this. But to Justin's point, Eric, let's put this as an action item and an agenda item, and those two things, an update on what the mayor mentioned with the recreation department, and then this discussion we're having. Let's put this on our agenda. And between now and then, if you've got any ideas, questions, suggestions, let's funnel those to Eric on particular intersections, particular gateway points, and particular funding opportunities as well. Councilman Ware, I can tell when you're ready to want to talk again.
Well,
I've been with you long enough to read your body language, I'm afraid. So,
well, you're hitting some good points there, Mr. Chairman. I'm wondering whether, when Justin said we circle back on a meeting just on this, I agree with that. I actually believe that you, myself, Councilman Moody can get with Mr. Armstrong with the county, and we get with our public works people and have a joint meeting on these same gateways that we control to see how can our both public works department go in and make improvements in those areas, as opposed to waiting until the next West Ashley Revitalization Committee meeting. I think we need to go and get a meeting of the people that make it happen. Jim Armstrong is the guy that gets things done. Our public works people, they get it done too. Let's pull them together on these gateways that we got through talking about. And if we have to go battle and get some money, I don't know whether we can get some money out of this American Recovery Act money that we already have deposited in the city of Charleston. We're not talking about a lot of money, okay? And as far as, I want to throw this out, and I'll be quiet after this. There's $2.5 billion in Columbia that they're going to be dividing up somewhere between late August and September. The governor has said it could be a game changer. We are not asking for any of it. The city of Charleston is not in the game asking for any of that money. We have an economic development project going on at the Epic Center over there. We'd like to revitalize again the Northbridge area up there. Why aren't we asking for monies from the American Recovery Act out of Columbia? Our lobbyists we should give them instructions on what to ask for. Now, we've got 2 months, and $2.5 billion is going to be divided up in the state of South Carolina. And right now, we don't have our hand out. We got to get in the game on that. So again, that's for you, me, the mayor, and the rest of the city council got to get up there and get our program together, because that money's going to be divided up. I've talked to 2 senators from different parts of the state, one from Florence, one from Columbia. And about 2 weeks ago, they were laughing at me saying, Charleston isn't in the game, is missing. So, and we got all this revitalization here that we like to do. Columbia's got money in for their convention center. Something got 15 million out of the surplus with the city, with the state budget that was approved on back in May, late May. We have this one-time money. We got one-time problems trying to revitalize West Ashley. That has to be a request. So if there's money.
Good point. And Councilman Warren, I would throw in not only just the public works department, we would need parks and recreation involved.
I agree. Great suggestion.
So Councilmember Moody, Councilmember Waring, and we'll draw in Councilmember Carl Brady in that discussion as well. And if we can set up a meeting with the 4 of us or 5 of us, let's go ahead and get that done. And between now and then probably we can report back to this commission what we did in the interim as well.
That'd be great.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Very good, very robust discussion. Appreciate the public input and comments on this. Is there any other business we need to bring up before this commission before we adjourn? Okay. All right. Well, thank you all very much. And we will, Eric, when's our next meeting? Have we set a date?
Our next scheduled meeting, because we're doing every other month, would be September 8th.
Okay. All right.
And I have been, Councilman Moody just signed off. I've been talking with the Bees Ferry Public Library to see if that can be large enough to support us for an indoor, in-person event. So keep your eyes peeled for that one.
Thank you very much. All right, goodbye, everybody. Have a good rest of the week and a good, safe weekend. Thank you all.
Thank you all.
Good seeing you again, Jonathan.